Not long ago, we were stuck, grinding jobs we hated. But there's so much more to life than that.
We decided to do everything that everyone told us could not be done. Now we're flipping houses, we own multiple companies, and we're here to prove that you never have to settle for mediocrity.
I tour with my band, we run our companies together, and we've manifested a life beyond our wildest dreams. All by having the courage to take the leap and ignore the naysayers.
We declared mutiny on the life we were handed. Now we are here to share how we did it with you.
Tune in for inspiring stories, manifestation techniques, and real advice. We'll show you the steps to flip your mindset, your money, and your life.
Welcome to the Mutiny Model.
Ready to join the rebellion? Let's chart your course. Welcome to the Mutiny Model, empowering your strategic rebellion. I am one of your hosts, Stephanie. Beside me here is my handsome husband, Patrick, my life partner, my right-hand man. Every week, guys, we bring you guests who have rebelled, who have gone against the grain, who choose to live life on their own terms, okay? People who saw something that they didn't like about their life and they were brave enough to change it. So this week, we have Mr. Sahil Maripuri. Patrick, would you introduce Sahil?
Yeah, this is my brother. Listen, this is one of the greatest men I've met. He's a good friend of mine. Everybody say hello to Mr. Sahil Maripuri. He's a real estate investor. He's into the food and hospitality business. He's the father of 3 beautiful children. Mm-hmm. He worked in the aerospace department, the defense, and all this. And so we're happy to have him. Welcome, Sahil.
Thank you, guys. Happy to be here.
Yes, sir.
Hear the full story. Yeah.
Something.
How are you
I'm
today?
writing the story.
Yes, sir. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
We're honored, really.
Yeah.
This is going to be a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
excited to be to help you guys kick this off.
Yes, sir.
I know. You're you're the second guest we've ever had. We started off the show and we did a 2-part series where we kind of told our story, right? Because of course people are watching the show. Some know us and some don't, right? So just kind of, who are we and why are we able to kind of speak on this subject of rebellion and of living life on your own terms. What have we done to design our own lives? So
Right.
if you don't know, you can go back and check out those last couple episodes, episode 1 and 2. But today we're here to get into Sahil's story. So Sahil, we know that you own a restaurant where we order food from all the time because it's so delicious. Beiruti.
I am a
You're
frequent flyer at Beiruti restaurant. Yeah.
An investor in Beiruti. I know you
Yeah.
know you have a wonderful partner who you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Do you want to just back us up a little and tell us about a little bit of your upbringing and what things that kind of shaped who you are and kind of affected you that made you want to be an entrepreneur later in life?
Yeah. It's a super interesting question.
It's a loaded question, right?
There's a lot to that. It's
Yeah,
like a life story,
we're
right?
here for
Right,
it.
Yeah.
right.
All right, so we talked a little bit about my family upbringing a little bit. So both my parents from India. They
Okay.
came here. They both came here for grad school time, right? I was born here, born in Boston. My dad traveled on for work a little bit, and then my family settled down in Wyndham. We've lived there for the last 25 years.
Beautiful
or so.
town.
Yeah. It was very different town back then. Right?
Yeah.
There was like one stoplight.
Really?
It was like a blinking light. Maybe there was a Dunkin' Donuts in town or something, right?
Yeah.
But super interesting. I watched my dad. My dad was somebody who left home. He left India for like great opportunities in a land that he knew nothing about, right?
Yeah.
And really, was all in on I'm gonna live the American dream. And as I reflect on that whole journey, it's been a huge source of inspiration for me as I think about, what's possible, what can you do with your life. And I think a lot of times you guys will find it interesting that a lot of times people have this fixed mindset on like what they know to be true based on what they've seen around them. And for me, I've watched a guy who came here with 2 suitcases and not a lot of other stuff, not a lot of support to, starting at the very bottom. And, now he lives in a beautiful house in Florida. He's got the stuff, he's got the toys, he goes on vacations, he does whatever he wants. And that for me was a huge source of, okay, I don't really want to live in this bubble, this small bubble of what I know to be true. I want to see what I could possibly do with my life, right?
Yeah.
What a huge transformation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
From coming here with that suitcase to
Yeah.
having it all, right? The
Yeah.
American dream.
And, and having it all, there's the material elements. This is one part we talk about all the time, right? The material elements are one part of it, but, being able to be a good person in your community, being able to be a really respected father, grandfather, being able to be the friend that people call when, they need help or they need advice, to be charitable, right? All those things are a part of, in my opinion, what makes you successful, right?
Yeah.
If you make a ton of money and you have it in your bank account and everybody thinks that you have poor moral character, or you don't do this, or you don't do that, or you're not a
You
good
never
friend,
see your
right?
kids,
then
right?
what's the point?
Like,
right?
what's,
Yeah, so that all kind of like feeds into what is important for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's story is different. For him, he traveled a ton, and he was always around for the important things, but he traveled a ton because he was providing for a family.
Yeah.
For me, I have a different opportunity to try to build businesses that my kids are involved in, and that's a bit more of my path, right? It's I love when my kids are in the restaurant running around, or when they're on a site looking at a property that we may rehab, right? And they're running around and they're doing their thing. That, to me, that's an important indicator of, is this the right direction or the wrong direction, right? And the parts to me that are hard to sort of align with are when you're getting pulled away totally and you're sure you're gonna do really well, but at the cost, right?
Yeah.
Right. I think it's interesting to do something big, right? To step outside of your comfort zone, you need a why, right? You need, and usually when you're younger, it's the material things. Usually it's the car, it's the it's the boat, it's the house, right? When you're younger, and then as you get older, you're like, you know what? Time freedom is actually like what I want. Is actually like what I'm interested in. Like, if I want to go to Aruba tomorrow, can I get on a plane and do that? Do I have to answer to anyone? Right? You know, that's what, as you get a little bit older, you realize. Was that, I know we talk about that a lot, right?
Absolutely. Freedom. I think that's kind of like the reason why we continue to move and navigate the world like that we do, is because we are firm in that belief system where, I think, listen, we all start from somewhere. So when you're younger, we work, you work, and if you work hard. Just always work hard at what you do. However, the goal, though, I feel like, is to always have a plan to branch off someday to do something for you, whether it's to build that legacy for your kids. And, when you're selfless, what I mean by that is, like, say, if you have kids, for us, like that, have kids, it's not about you anymore, right? We have kids. That's like everything I do now is for my little Starlet, right? It's like, and then you have Lydia, and then your kids, and so it's like, it's for that purpose that we are doing these businesses. That we're, we could wake up one day and build a studio.
Yeah,
it's not for me. It's really for what this could lead to being for her. After all is said
and also
done.
having someone tell you, you can't see your kids because you got to be in the office from 9 to 6, and then they're tired when you got an hour drive home. Yeah. What was, was that part of your, because I know you were in corporate for a while, right? You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it's fun. I just want to detail one thing you said is when you're younger, right? You want the house, you want the cars, you want the boat, you want all the cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you're obsessed with these things, like the watches, the clothes. You see somebody step out of a car and they got certain shoes on, you want those things, right? And then
like,
eventually, and I've said this a ton of times, eventually you have all those things and you just don't care. Right? When you first get them, it's the coolest thing ever, right? Like I'll still never forget, like, one of the first nice cars I bought. Got shipped to my house, put it in the garage. I want to sleep in the thing. Right, that was it. Like, that was it to me.
Yeah.
And then recently, I've had a ton of cars. It was an E550 Mercedes, right? It was like the V8 bi-turbo, but at the time the 63 didn't have a all-wheel drive option, so it was like the perfect car to drive at that point, right? I was young, and like soon after that, like, I bought Chrissy this first Range Rover that she had, and that was like a really cool car to be in your 20s to have, right? But recently, like, I bought one of my I've had a bunch of cars since then, but I bought that blue F90 M5. I think
I have seen it. Yeah, it's very nice.
Cool,
car.
super cool. I couldn't wait to buy it when I bought it, right? Sent them the money. They shipped it up. 3 weeks later, it got to my house, and I was busy with the kids and doing stuff, and pulled it off the truck, put it in the driveway, and shut the garage door and just went back inside, right? It wasn't that cool.
Yeah.
Like, when you don't have it, you want it. Once you have it, you're like, this is cool. But the next thing, and this is like a huge point, right? It's the next thing doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Right.
bigger house isn't going to make you happy. The extra car isn't going to make you happy. And at the time, I had this stuff like stacking up in my driveway. I had the Raptor, I had the Escalade, I had that, the Range Rovers, right? And like, it's diminishing returns, I think. And then you find that like, okay, so what makes you happy in life? And it's not the material assets, it's what you can do with them, right? To your point, it's legacy. So for me, I think about businesses and what can you build for your kids, what can you be involved in, but also like what impact can you make? Like how do you become more philanthropic? How do you build better relationships with people? Because it's not all about what it's in it for you, it's about what you can bring to the people around you. What can you be part of a community, right? I talked about getting involved in the Boys and Girls Club. I recently joined the board of the Boys and Girls Club in Salem.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
And to me,
That's
it's
awesome.
another great community with something that's important.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll touch on this later, but my mom passing away was a big part of me finding efforts that aligned me to a mission that she would have enjoyed, that she would have been proud of. Right? And that's kind of dictated a little bit of my journey in life, right?
Yeah.
So to answer your question about corporate, I loved it. I did what are you supposed to do, right? You go to college, you go to school, you get good grades. You go to a good high school, you get good grades. I went to Central Catholic, right? You go to college, you get the engineering degree, graduated at the top of my class, right? You get the MBA, you go in corporate, doing really well. I climbed through the ranks really quickly there. I had fun in the beginning, and then eventually started to get more into management. And management is more about like managing people with feelings and social climate and things like that, right? And like that was all during COVID, and
HR and all that, like
100%.
yeah.
And I got to the point where I wasn't really like enjoying the job that I had anymore. It was like, hey, all this pressure from all sides to be like this sort of perfect figurehead, and it kind of became not really authentic. It was not who I was. I wasn't having fun with it. And the real key that I talk about all the time is I used to go to work and like, you sit in your car, you finish your coffee for 2, 3, 4 minutes, and next thing you know, it's 20 minutes. You're sitting there for like 20, 25 minutes in your car. And like when that becomes a consistent trend, you realize, okay, something's
You're like,
wrong
hold
here.
on, I don't want to go in.
Yeah, I don't even want to go in here, right?
You're like, wait a second.
Yeah, and then you're sitting there all day.
Yeah.
You're like looking at your watch. You're like, okay, I got 2 more hours, then I can get out of here, right?
Yeah.
And all those things for me said like, yeah, I could keep doing this for sure. I could keep doing this. I could keep making great money. I'll go on to be really successful here. But like, there's only so many hours in your life.
Yeah.
And I'm finding myself just sitting here really just exhausted with it, right? And so that was kind of the first inkling that there's something else. Like I got to go do something else, and there's something else out there. And then the question's like how, and that's like a much bigger journey, right? Like how do I get out? What do I do?
Yeah.
Where do I go? Am I even capable of doing that? Now I start to have kids, right? There's a huge level of risk outside of it. And so,
Because that's tough. I just want to acknowledge that you were very comfortable, right? And we all know that comfortability is the enemy of growth, right? But we just had a guest on who they started a business out of need, right? Out of he didn't have the money to buy diapers. That was his story, right?
Yeah.
And that's just a different story than someone coming from corporate. And you could have retired there, right? Yep. You could have had a healthy salary. You could have had all the benefits, kept growing, kept doing it. I'm sure you worked a lot of hours. I'm sure it was very draining. I'm sure you worked on the weekends, getting texts and emails about stuff you didn't want to hear about, right? Yeah. But you, at the end of the day, you were comfortable. You were making great money, but you still chose to make that pivot and to go out on your own. So was that mainly fueled by wanting more time with your family, or?
I think there's a few things. It's your, if you have a bet on yourself mentality, you end up in corporate where, you do really well for a period of time. Towards the end there, I also ended up in a position where like HR was like, hey, you don't have enough years of experience for the next thing, right? Yeah. So then I ended up thinking to myself, if I bet on myself and I went and did all these different things, like, could I grow faster than this 3 to 5% every year with a few promotions here and there, right? So, some of it's family, some of it's bet on yourself. I think the other is if you're really an entrepreneurial person, you'd rather work all day for yourself and have the problems that you own that are your own than
100%.
then do it for somebody else.
100%.
And I think
It
like,
rubs you wrong, right?
yeah,
To just,
nobody
it
nobody
doesn't
gets it
feel-
unless
it
you do
doesn't
it.
feel
Yeah.
right.
No. I tell people that I'm like, listen, working for yourself, you make as much as you want to make, but when you don't make the money in those months or whatever, it's on you. So the motivation is there, right? It's
Yeah.
like, however, for us, it's worth it because the freedom, what we call freedom to do what you want when you want, please, like, it's the thing that drives us to want to wake up every day and grind at our business, right?
Right.
Again, because we understand we're building it for us. We're building it for our little one. And so, yeah, the motivation's different. And more than likely, I feel like entrepreneurs, you're going to do something that you're passionate about, right? That's another thing. Doesn't make any sense if you actually go and try to be an entrepreneur, something you don't like to do, because that defeats the whole purpose. The whole purpose, if you work and you work in corporate or any other section, but you decide to branch off into being an entrepreneur, it'll behoove you to start to do something that you're passionate about, because you wake up every day, you jump out of bed. I was excited to come hang out with you today here. I jumped out. I was getting ice and alcohol. I was like, I got it. My brother's coming. I was like, I was shaving. I was like, this is we coming. I feel
Now
good.
it's
I
a
feel
party.
great. Now it's a party. Hey, cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Again, I was excited to come see you.
Steph.
Cheers.
But that's what it's about. And it's just a good place to be at this point,
Yeah.
But again, Sahil embodies that spirit, that thing we're trying to push with the mutiny model. You are it. So there's more to talk about here.
Yeah, and I want to know, Sahil, what would you say to that person who's in that situation? They're in corporate, they're successful, right? They've done all the things, but they do want more time freedom. They do want to be with their kids more. They do. And they know what they're good at, right? Because at least being in corporate gives you that awareness.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person who's just like really hesitant to make the move to give their notice?
I think it's different for everybody, right? What you want to go do. Like there are definitely days in my life, and entrepreneurship is glamorized on Instagram. It's like, you got all this stuff. You do whatever you want every day, right?
Yeah.
You also wake up at 3 a.m. and you sit on the side of your bed like, oh crap, how am I going to make any of this happen?
Oh, yeah.
So what I will say is that also isn't for everybody. So
Yeah.
if you're in a corporate job and you don't like the job, don't necessarily think that like, hey, you just parachute out and just go start a business. 'Cause
Right.
that might not be for you.
You're right.
Yeah.
But identify what your skill sets are and what you enjoy doing enough that you can go do it, right? And so for me, it wasn't really about, aerospace and defense or this or that, right? It was about, I like connecting with people. I'm a very social being, right? I like the hospitality element. When I was younger, I thought I wanted to like be a GM of a hotel, right? And then, that probably wasn't the path, but the restaurant hospitality stuff is exciting to me. I think building wealth in real estate is exciting to me. Connecting with people, and then just honestly being able to be my authentic self versus, who I was supposed to be in
polished
this
version
polished
of-
version, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, when I put those together, I started to think, all right, how do I kind of get to that path? And so for somebody else, the answer that I have might not be the answer for them, but it's you have to really do some deep soul searching on what is the thing that I want to go do, right? So maybe if it's, hey, I want to go from a salary job to a sales job because now I can kind of control my time a little bit more and get paid for my efforts, that's a good option.
Yeah.
It's a great option for a lot of people who don't want to take the overhead risk, right? Do I want to go start a business, but now do you need capital to do that? Or do you, what niche do you have to go do that, right?
Yeah.
The other is, maybe don't, I think about this sometimes, like maybe don't put in your notice and jump out of the plane right away. Like try to get the other plane ramped up
Well, do
so that you can,
both,
so you can jump
right?
over.
Yeah.
Right?
Like I'm not a believer in, I'm not a believer in side hustles because I think that like anybody who side hustles anything doesn't really like do it passionately and well, right? But like definitely ramp the plane up so you can jump over versus jumping right out, right?
Right.
And so that's another thing.
We watch a lot of Gary Vee, right? And he says that he's like, you know what? He's just always like pushing people to be tough, right? He's like, so what if you work till 5 and you want to start a business? You work on your business, you eat dinner and you work on your business from 6 to 8:30 every night. And that's what you do until you can quit, right? So
totally.
It's like you can do both at once. We had a little bit of that going on in our journey where we had both worked in healthcare before real estate. and we did both at once. I think it was like only like a 3 or 4 month period.
Yeah.
And then we just jumped right off the cliff.
Yeah.
But we're a little crazier than most people.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in corporate, right? I was buying Airbnbs and I was operating Airbnbs. So I'd be like, in the middle of meetings, communicating with a guest who was upset
You're
that
like,
there were
I'll
only
send the towels.
there's only 5 coffee cups, right? And I'm like, what do you want me to do with this right now? I don't. The last guest must have broken a coffee cup, right? So I'm in the middle of a meeting saying, well, just go buy another set when you go to town, and I'll reimburse you for the expense, right? Meanwhile, I'm sitting in a corporate meeting with a bunch of vice presidents. But I was trying to get this thing off the ground, right?
Yeah.
And I would drive
We have
up.
Allie here in the office. She manages our Airbnb. And she certainly deals with all that.
Oh, you get all of it. You get all of it. And I would drive up and do some of the maintenance by myself. And so it's like, at the end of the day, you're driving an hour and a half each way to,
the trash,
do
Sahil,
whatever it
I'm
is to
telling
do.
you, it's
Yeah.
the trash for us.
It really
It's always something with the trash.
Yeah, it's always, there's always
the
something.
trash.
Yeah.
But yeah, that must have been really hard. But you were building.
Yeah,
And
it was fun. I was learning a ton
Yeah,
in the process. Like, even though it was hard, I was focused on the learning on all of it. And
Yeah.
I think that's honestly a big key to all of it throughout your journey is if you focus on the hard, it's super hard. Everything's hard. Like, it is all hard. There's no easy day. Right?
Yeah, right.
I don't really glamorize the hard. I glamorize like, this is fun. I'm having a blast because it's true. I am. Like, if I could pick my problems versus any of the other problems, I'd rather have my problems. Right?
Exactly.
True.
But you learn so much from the hardest days. Like, when everything's going well, you're just like, cool. Let me count my checks. Let me just go on with my day, right? When you're getting your teeth kicked in, and you're like, wow, I didn't make any money on that. That was not part of the plan. Oh my God, this is taking longer to ramp up than I thought, right? What am I going to do here? How am I going to pivot on this? That's where you dig deep and when you learn about yourself, which I think is more important than learning about your business.
Yeah.
And then you learn how to fix whatever it is in the business, right? And then you move forward. And for me, I'm super comfortable with failing now.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I wasn't.
Love it.
I hate it.
It is.
hate
It sounds crazy. So to the people watching, it sounds crazy when we're saying people like, we're here talking and we're saying failing. But like, you got to embrace that failure because you grow up in a lot of, cultures or sometimes it's cultural, right? Sometimes it's just what you've been taught since you were born. That failure is bad. Failing is bad. Like, I was in that point before where, and I come from an African culture where in your school grades, like, you fail. That's bad. Like, it's like, no, the older I'm getting, right, the older, and you learn from people. We have a lot of mentors that have mentored us throughout, our journey. And you start to embrace failure. Sounds crazy. But if you're not failing, you're not growing. You said that on the last show, but it's true. If you're not failing, you're not growing because those are where the lessons are learned, right? Those are where the lessons are learned. And now it's like what I'm learning even now, I'm grounding myself. Every time we're doing an endeavor, whether it's a new business we open or some adventure we're on or something, I am taking time to smell the roses. So what I mean by that is I am very conscious of the things I'm learning in the hardest of times, right? Because you can start a business today. It's hard. You grow it. A year, 2, 3 years later, you now it's established and you're doing well. And you go, sometimes you want to forget, like, oh my God, it used to be hard to do that thing because it's so good now. But then you look back, you grew from that. You learned so many things, whatever it is. Whether it was like how to hire people, whether it was like who not to hire or what to hire during that time frame, how to balance your accounts, whatever. There was something you learned.
Yeah.
So I'm taking time now because Stephanie and I will wake up tomorrow and say we want to open another business out of I can't count how many my attorney is like these kids we will call it be like we just opened another LLC and she's like another one and it's like. And people are like, well, how are you guys doing this? But we just seeking to grow. I think that's what you become. You become such an entrepreneur in the spirit where you're like, you wanna keep doing good. You wanna keep growing. I think that's what it is. It's not so much about the money you make doing these businesses. It's about the growth, the things you're learning, and you yearn for more. You want more of that.
Yeah.
Not so much money. It sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Because when I make money, I tell people, I can't wait to give my money away. What are you talking about? I like paying people. I like giving people money. I write checks all the time.
You circulate it because money is energy.
Oh yeah,
Right?
my
That's-
GC
that's
loves
what
me.
you-
I'm
yeah.
always writing them a check.
Yeah. Of course.
Take it. Like take the money.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy. But go ahead.
The
Yes.
growth, I think the growth element's huge. Like, but if you back up a few, like to your
Yeah.
point about culture,
Yeah.
it's everything in society like forms you to get graded, and if you get an A, you're successful. If you get a D, you're not successful, right? And I think that that's an interesting element because it assumes that if you got the D, that you wouldn't learn a ton of stuff that would then make you successful, and that may be true to some extent, right? There are people that have patterns of D's throughout their entire career, right?
Yeah.
Like it's probably not helping you, right? But like
Right.
the feeling that if I don't get an A is a bad thing is probably a learned behavior that we struggle with, right?
Yes,
and
yes,
I
yes.
think for all the
humans.
best reasons, right? Again, I'll go back to my dad, right? My dad was super successful. He never really showed us when and how he failed. It's not until now that we have real conversations where, and I credit him for this a ton because he talks to me about the more challenging times in his life now, and I never saw him as a kid. Like I just saw him hitting home runs all the time. It was
Right.
it seemed to me
The
like he
wins.
was just everything was winning, right?
Yeah.
Everything was good, right?
Yeah.
And you realize that like a lot of those people who are very successful have had these missed opportunities, or struck out at the plate on certain things, or they failed at one thing, right?
Yeah.
But it propelled. They learned a ton. They dug in deep. They learned a ton. It took them to that next opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And I've certainly seen that with him. I see it with myself, and the other part about it is you're in the arena. To fail, you have to be in the arena. The people
Hell
who are
yeah.
going to tell you that, like, hey, you failed on this thing, they're eating popcorn in the top bleachers.
Yes.
Right.
While you're out there on the
Mic
field.
drop.
Yeah,
That's
you
dope.
get your
Mic
teeth
drop.
kicked in.
You
know
heard
what I mean?
that? He
Yeah.
dropped the
Yeah.
gem
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
there.
Like that old the man in the arena, the whole quote I used to have it on my wall at
love
Raytheon.
that.
Yeah,
I
That's
love
awesome.
that.
I'm in the field.
Yeah.
There's blood on my face.
Yeah.
At
And-
least I'm out here.
Yeah.
At
yeah,
least
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
out here. That's
And I'll be back the next day, and I'll be
that's
back
what
the
you
next
gotta
day.
tell yourself on those days.
Yeah.
Of course.
Frankly, parenting, you guys know,
those
parenting's
days,
like
yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
Some
I
days I go
walk-
to bed, I'm like, man, I didn't do that right. I wish I could yell
Yeah.
at that kid.
Oh my God.
They were
The
just trying to be a
balance.
kid.
Yeah.
You realize, like, hey, I'm doing the best that I
Yeah.
can. I'm showing up every day. It's
Yeah.
hard.
I remember in one of our craziest days in real estate, and we had a bunch of deals on our board. I guess
12.
many trades.
I remember we had 12
literally
deals
going on at once.
going.
It's okay to have 12 deals going on at once. However, every single one of them had a problem, and every single one. If 12 great, like everything good, perfect. I'm not worried. They're good. They're good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Everything Sahil was
Yeah.
going bad. And people will never see this, but I talk about this on podcasts and on panels and whatever else. But I remember being in the office with her and I working, we're dealing with stuff, we're dealing with attorneys and this and that and that. And all of a sudden, I said, Stephanie, I need 5 minutes. And what I did was lay in the middle of the floor in the fetal position.
Yep.
And yes.
I have a picture.
Yeah, okay,
took a picture.
this is proof.
I did.
People.
Yeah.
I laid in the fetal position and for 5 minutes, and yes, I may have cried in that moment but then you know what? I gathered myself, I got back up, and I'm like, gotta keep going. What are we
Yeah.
gonna do here? This is,
You're like, all right, I got 6 bad news to deliver. I got 6 fires to put out. I got
Reset.
like
It's a real
like
thing.
let's get to it, right?
Yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the Mutiny Model. One of our business ventures is Patrick and I flip houses. So please give us a call at the number below if you guys come across anything in Massachusetts or New Hampshire that may fit the bill. Any properties that have been inherited, properties that are run down, or maybe you own a property that you want to sell, but you just can't get it up to par to put it on the market. Give us a call. We'll give you a fair cash offer. We can close in 2 weeks, and we hope to hear from you.
So yeah, Sahil, such an interesting conversation we're having with you. But was there any point in your life something that motivated you or inspired you to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, for sure. I
Okay.
think, the theme that comes up that we've had a lot is the dark, harder times teach you a ton, right?
Yeah.
And for
Yeah.
me, in my life, loss seems to be the thing that fuels my why on a lot of things, right? Entrepreneurial, philanthropy, time value, relationships, all that stuff. And so when I'll say that I kind of was this, knocked it out of the park student all growing up. I did really well. I did a lot of things well. There was areas where I was challenged, but I was a really smart kid. And when I was 22, my mom passed away, and it was sudden, just a freak thing. Yeah, she had a heart attack, and I happened to be home from college because I was traveling the next day for spring break, and she had a heart attack. Found her on the ground.
Wow.
And, did chest compressions and called 911.
Oh my God.
Emergency room, and it was sad because it's sad anyway, but it was sad at how sudden it was, and that I think was a real wake up call of life. Right, when you're young, you think, and even then, it didn't really affect me then. I was very like headstrong. I was on this path that like I'm gonna make her proud. I didn't want her to look back and think like everybody else thought he was a good kid, and then that happened and he fell apart. Right, so. You
wanted to keep it together.
I kept it together, right? And I remember this happened in March. I was supposed to graduate from Northeastern in May. I went in, took my finals like a month later, and everybody was like, hey, why don't you take the semester and just recoup? I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Did it, right? Went and interviewed for my MBA after that at BC, and during my interview, this came up, and people were kind of shocked that I was still down the path, and that kept me in. It kept me in the game. So I went and did that, went to go work at Raytheon. And it wasn't until like a little while later that I started to say, hey, like these years are passing by, and what do I really want? What do I want my life to look like and feel like? How do I want to be remembered, right? And that really pushed me to want to be in my own businesses, to invest in myself, to create something that I could enjoy more time with my family, right? And we talk about wealth as being money, but to me, I identified over the past few years that wealth is time. It's time. Freedom, it's relationships, it's health, right? It's passion, interest, excitement, it's philanthropy. To be able to do all those things, I think was a huge driver for me. And then the question is, how do you get there? And that's where the entrepreneurial journey becomes a tool for you to get there. Right? And you want to spend your time doing things that you enjoy. Obviously, it's got to make money, otherwise it's just a hobby, right?
What are we doing?
And so you fight for that, but you want to be able to do it the way that you want to do it. You want to be able to incorporate your family. You want to be able to build relationships. You want to be able to really maximize the time, because I think that until that happens, you have this mentality that you'll go through 40 years of your life and then you'll retire and then you just do it all later, right? I'll travel later. I'll enjoy myself later. I'll develop a hobby later, right? And hopefully you're still healthy. Hopefully that you still have the relationships, right? Hopefully you still have somewhat of an identity outside of whatever your corporate career was.
Right.
But that feeling that time is short is probably a double-edged sword for me, because it also caused me a ton of anxiety. Right? Like I worry that I'm running out of time all the time. Like, oh, I only got X amount of time to get this thing done, right? But it also is a huge motivator for me.
Of course.
And it pushes me ahead. Like a lot of people look at me like, hey, dude, you're pretty hard on yourself. You're 34. I just turned 34 last week, right? 34 years old.
Happy birthday.
You're very hard on yourself. I'm like, it's in me. I don't sleep well if I don't feel like I'm making some progress in life, right? So I would say loss, and I've had a few of them since, good friends that passed away, and I think that those things, when you're learning about yourself in your darkest hours, is what pushes you to really figure out what's next for you.
And then didn't you end up starting a charity in your mom's honor?
Yep.
Tell us about that a little.
Yeah, so it's the Sahil Maripuri Foundation, and she passed away of a heart attack, which in women, in men, generally you feel localized pain and numbness in your left arm. You're having a heart attack. That's like the sign,
It
right?
gives you,
With women, what we learned afterwards, and in hindsight, we heard her say this for a couple days, right, was it's nausea, it's shoulder soreness, it's general like body soreness, it's I don't really feel good. And a woman who's like approaching 50 isn't going to go to the hospital for that, right?
No.
Right.
Yeah.
So they call it the silent killer in women for that reason. Because, I remember her saying, "Oh, my shoulder's sore and I don't feel good," and whatever, and you just go take a nap, right?
Yeah.
So we started a charity with two missions. One is to build awareness, and we did a lot of fundraising work, and now we do a lot of direct contribution to other charities. But to bring awareness to that piece for women, and then the other is what she enjoyed doing. I wanted to do something that could keep her memory alive for both us and for now her grandkids, who she never got to meet. She's got 4 of them now that she never got to meet. And she was very involved in the schools, and she was very involved with helping needy or homeless, and particularly kids with healthcare and education. So that's driven a ton of that effort, and my family's been really focused on that, and it's caused us both to contribute financially, but also with time and effort, right? We talked about the Boys and Girls Club piece, and to me, that mission, when I started to do a little bit more with the club over the years, but that mission specifically, I could almost like feel that she would have said, yeah, that's awesome. Walking, I could feel her energy walking in that club, right? And saying this is cool. And so for me, it drives some of that part of your whys, right? Like what's important to you, and that piece, being a person who's generous in the community, who gives their time, who, you know, it's not always about writing a check. It's about being that smiling face in the room that people like, hey, he's the guy. Call him. You know, if you need something, he's always happy to help. Right?
Yeah. That's awesome. Congratulations. You know, I'm sure she'd be so proud of that. I'm sure she's looking down on that, you know, and just knows that you're and to carry on, you know, her memory and her legacy. And I also wanted to give you a shout out for helping out our foundation, the Rising Rose Foundation. We're having an event this weekend, and Beirut is catering. So even though you're, you know, in other philanthropic projects, I appreciate you still throwing in and helping ours out. So we're happy to. We do projects to benefit needy families in the Rockingham County in our immediate area, just because, you know, we want to see the impact that we're having, right? So thank you for helping us out with that.
And I think it's, you know, I obviously happy to help you guys. Like I really enjoy working with people who have good energy, that are doing something good that they're passionate about, not just because they have to, right? But also like the interesting part, I don't know if you want to tell the Rose story that we talked about.
Go ahead. Oh you tell me.
Like so both of my daughter's middle name are Rose. It's Mila Rose.
As is
ours.
So just crazy. Starlet Rose.
Yeah. My holding companies for some of my investments are in the name of Rose Capital or Rose Investment, right? There's a few different ones. And got roses tattooed on my forearms, and the rose really came from when my mom passed away. We had a room in my house that was filled with these red roses. And so it's kind of a bittersweet thing, but like when I see a ton of roses, it always reminded me of her, which then took me down this path of all these different things, right? And so when you called me and you started to explain the Rose Foundation,
you're like, I don't care what it is.
It feels like there's some specific reason why, right? And then I told you about the girls, and you told me about Starlet. And I'm like, okay, well, it's interesting how those things sometimes make you think, well, is that a sign, or am I just looking for something to make you feel good, right?
Well, once you and I found out about the Rose connection, about your daughter's name being Rose and their mom and I was, and you know, forever you and I, when we talk, when we chat, we have the greatest conversations, right? And that's why I'm happy to share this with the viewers of our audience. You're just such a great soul. Again, it goes back to that. Like, I feel like we're connected. You know, we had our other guest here that was here, a friend, we were chatting at, you know, in between sets. And I feel like we're all connected some way, somehow. The people that Stef and I have as friends, you know, family, the people that really are close, our tribe, we like to say our tribe, we're all connected. I feel like, call it what you want, God, the universe, and it brings us all together. And so you coming in my life, I manifested you. I mean, you're one of my favorite people on the planet, and you know this. There's no shame these days that I'm getting older, when I tell my brothers, my friends, you know, most of my friends, I call them brothers, right? I go, I love you. And, you know, they have to, some people are uncomfortable at first, like, man, you tell me you love me all the time. I'm like, get used to it, because I love you. Like, I genuinely love people, because if I don't, I'm not going to say it. Like, that's just it. Like, it's not, I don't need to fake it anymore. I'm very comfortable in my skin. So
you're authentic.
Who
you are.
That's it. You mentioned that earlier.
I think that stuff's magnetic. Like, you know, I love that energy. I think also, like, the more that I started to be who I really want to be, it drew in other people like yourself, right? The relationships become stronger. I showed up at a business meeting with Patrick, and I had like a 1-year-old, like a 9-month-old or something. I don't remember how old Lydia was at the time, right? And I'm like, I'm at the bar at Atkinson Country Club with a group of people talking to you. I'm trying to rock the baby, and you're like, you're good.
And I think I offered, I was like, you got to go to the bathroom, give me the baby. You go.
That was me,
I'll
right?
take the baby.
It was just, that's real energy.
Right? Yes, it's effortless.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to bring this home. So, Sahil, I think what we want to know is if there are any viewers watching and they are, you know, either thinking about making a change, or maybe they have made a change and they have their own business, but they run into times where they just kind of doubt or question themselves a lot. You know, we want to know, do you ever experience that? And do you have a technique or a way that you kind of like pull through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will say yes, 100%,
Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah.
I think if you're not really waking up at 3 a.m. questioning if you even know what you're doing, I don't think you're like a real entrepreneur.
You're not growing.
You're not growing, right?
Yeah.
You've obviously stretched yourself pretty far.
Yeah.
I think doubting yourself supernatural. I think if you don't, you're either not doing something big enough, or you're out of touch with reality, and you're probably a
Delulu.
maniac, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that for me, I remind myself why
Yeah.
why am I doing it? Why do I think I'm capable of doing it? What's on the other side of this initial moment of panic that's causing me to be in a little bit of a spiral here, right? And what are the few things that I can control in the near term that get me to out of this immediate form of passage, right? And
Right.
there's never been a story where somebody said, "Hey, I had this idea and I started a business and it just worked out great and I just
Yeah.
lived happily ever after." No, it's
Yeah.
like
It's so
I started a
easy.
business.
Yeah.
I was super optimistic. I opened the doors on day one. Nobody showed up. And then I spiraled for a while, and then my wife was mad at me, and then I still owed money on X, Y, and Z, and my lifestyle was expensive, and then I dug into a rut, and then everything started to come back. Right, that's the story. It's this.
It's the
right?
roller coaster.
Yeah, and
it's up
so
and down.
I think the reminding yourself why you're doing it and what you're capable of doing and how you're going to get through the short term sprints is what takes you to the long term. And if you think that doubting yourself is a problem, then it's probably not the right place to go. I think every day you're going to doubt yourself. 'Cause
Yeah.
the next, we talk about this all the time. Like next year, I'm going to come up with a new business.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have no business doing it. And I know that I have enough skills to do it, but it's going to stress me out. And I'm going to have different challenges then, right? And you
I'm
just
laughing.
do it.
I'm laughing because, I call this a past life, but I still hold my RN license, right? Still have my nursing license. And I would say probably about 3 times a year, I have a meltdown, right? I'm like, I'm not doing this. I cannot take the stress anymore. And I go and I'm like, the nursing jobs. Okay, I'm going to be a nurse again, right? And he's like, you're never going to be a nurse again.
Yeah.
He's like, you're going to have a license. He's like, and I'm like, leave me alone. I think I found something.
It's like I have to let her have her day.
He's like, you know what? Oh, have your meltdown.
Yeah.
Have your meltdown. And then I'm looking and I'm going, oh, I'd have to like go there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I had the same thing every 30 days, right? I'm like, I could just go back to corporate, make a pretty good salary, work like 25 hours a week, and have all the, But that's actually another great point is having people outside of just the self-talk. Self-talk only gets you so far, but like I look at this the same way with you, right? When I'm around somebody who I consider my brother or like a close friend, or if it's in a relationship, right? People are going to speak life into you because people see it in you. Like people who know you really see it. They see it in your eyes when you're like when you are struggling.
Oh yeah.
And I show up. I'm like, everything's good. I'm like, life's great. I can't complain, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, on the inside, I'm like, oh my god, I don't know how to figure this out, right?
That's so true.
Your close friends and family are gonna see it in you, and they're gonna, it's important to keep those people close because you don't have to tell them that you're having a hard time. They're gonna figure out like, yeah, you want to go out for a drink, you want to catch up, you want to do whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
For me, my dad, ironically, I always tried to like be perfect for my dad, like be this like, somebody who's proud of. My dad actually is the person I call when I'm like, oh shit, I don't know how to figure any of this out, right? And, like he's got a whole different world and life and background. His viewpoints are different, but like he talks me off the ledge. Yeah, you can, you did this. You're good at this. You're here, right? My friends like you are the same way, right?
Yep.
Your
those
circle.
those
So
are all the
important.
things. Yeah.
So important.
Because it's not this like, I had a great idea and I just shot to the moon and had a great
No.
time.
No.
And I retired and moved to Florida. That's not how it goes.
No. And it's funny. Her dad literally just yesterday, I to the point I was like, are you paranoid? He kept checking in on us.
Yeah.
Like he's like, you guys okay? He asked me that. I go, I'm great. A couple minutes go by. Stephanie, are you okay? Like, but he's been a businessman. He knows, and he knows. They check in with us every now. What's going on with this? We'll tell them like, oh, this deal is going this way. That's happening, and they know how we are, so they know what we have going on and everything. So her dad picks up on that, and we got to give him credit for that because again, to the point yesterday, I say we are actually fine. Like we're okay.
Yeah, today's
like,
a good day.
He goes, I don't know,
actually.
you guys look tired.
Yeah.
Like he picks up on that
Dads
because
know,
he's been
man.
there.
I mean, dads know. Like my relationship with my dad, like has gotten quite a bit stronger where like dads know, like
Yep.
they'll call you at the right time, they'll figure it out. And you're a dad now, like obviously moms have a totally different superpower, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
dads, like, they can tell with their kids, like, when something's not right. And
Oh, yeah.
Your parents can always tell, but like dads specifically, like,
I try to put my
Their
hair in
whole-
my face.
Yeah.
So it
their
it
whole
doesn't work.
their whole job is like, you think about it as a dad, like your whole job is take care of your kids and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know, make sure everybody's safe and protected
Yeah.
wherever you can help, right?
Yeah, we're lucky to have our dads, for sure.
For sure.
For sure. But Sahil, thank you so much for being here
Yeah,
with us
absolutely.
today.
Yeah, thank you,
to
brother.
all the viewers. Thank you guys for tuning into the Mutiny Model each and every week. We are growing, and it is all thanks to you guys and to our wonderful guests. Babe, do you want to sign us off? What do we have going on? What do we have coming up?
Well, what do we have going on? So Stephanie Jasmine. So as you know, Stephanie, country singer, New England powerhouse. She has a show at Saddle Up Salon at on 5/17, May 17th, and then at Bernie's Beach Bar, Hampton Beach, on June 28th. Those are your next shows.
Yep, those are my next couple
So
shows.
everyone's invited.
Shout out to
Please
Bobby
come
at
and
Saddle Up
support.
Saloon.
Saddle Up to Al Fleury, a friend
Shout
of
out to
ours,
Al, yep.
Fleury. And yeah, so thank you guys so much. Without you guys, there will be no Mutiny Model. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Love you guys.
Signing off, Pirates. Bye, guys.